toasting, joking too. Sipping and roasting is what we do. Light 'em up, drink 'em down. Whiskey and cigars all around. Cheers, y'all.
Well.
That sounds like a party about to happen, gentlemen.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this fine radio program, podcast, and video extravaganza known internationally
Hi, Mom.
as the world-famous Smoking and Toasting. Our program is all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars, and a few other things, but primarily about those things, and we're all very happy to be discussing and partaking when it comes to those things. My name is Cruz. My co-host is Ian Perry. Engineering on the Wheels of Steel is Jong, and Adam is our producer in the cloud. We are all glad to welcome you, happy to welcome you to our 322nd show, but show number 2 of being on the air everywhere on broadcast radio.
Everywhere. I love
all
the way
around
that
the country.
sounds.
And people have been asking me, so what stations are you on? And I have to reply, I have no idea. I like your response better, though.
I've been getting that all week, too. What stations are you on? I have no idea.
We have no idea. They haven't told us yet. But we're on a network that already has affiliates. So we're on the Audio One network, which I think originates out of Dallas, Texas. So they have affiliates, and so as long as those affiliates don't have something else that they want to run at 2 o'clock on Saturday afternoons, they get us. We're kind of like the booby prize, though. You know, you don't have something better, y'all can have that smoking and toasting. So we're excited about today's show. We're going to be talking about cheap vodkas and expensive whiskeys on today's show, and we'll be drinking some whiskey. I'm really excited to taste this.
I like whiskey.
And Ian, often talks about how I am thoughtful and will clear the plastic away from the neck, and sometimes even clear some of the liquid away from the neck of a particular bottle in order to, for safety
to
concerns.
mitigate spillage.
That's right, and for safety, for ocean.
Right, and also, sometimes with the plastic on the top, you can get that nasty little plastic cut.
Right, but today, Ian, I have thrown caution to the wind, and you will have to be most careful, sir, because we've not opened this one.
I can handle this.
Okay,
I've actually done this like twice.
Yeah,
so
today?
I feel like I can make this happen. Today. Took me a minute to catch it.
Well, it's gonna be a good one because we're trying the Oak and Eden. I say it's gonna be a good one. I'm excited about it. I'm anxious to taste it. It's Oak and Eden finished whiskey. So what this particular whiskey does is they take their whiskey and they finish it with like an oak stave that has been prepared with some kind of different barrel conditioning type finishing. And today's is a Rahr & Sons. So this is a rye whiskey, and it's finished in a Rahr & Sons oak, not in the barrel, but with the Rahr & Sons oak stave inside.
The stave
there.
In the bottle.
So
even. You can see it.
Does it say on the bottle, Ian, what particular Rahr & Sons beer that was?
Dadgum Soaked Spire.
Dadgum Soaked Spire, which I'm guessing is like a stout.
An American Oak Rahr & Sons Dadgum Soaked Spire.
Okay. So dadgum. We'll find out more about that as we get a little closer to sampling the whiskey, which we will do on the program today. We also got some really interesting beer.
This is a substantial bottle, by the way.
Yeah, it is. It's heavy.
It's
heavy. I know. It's very interesting. So I'm really excited about breaking into that bad boy. From the Texas Beer Company in Taylor, Texas, we'll taste their Wild Texas Kolsch on the program today. And from Harpoon Brewery in Boston, Massachusetts, and Windsor, Vermont.
I like Harpoon.
We'll try their Juicier Hazy IPA. Juicier, yeah. Now, for me, Harpoon IPA, when I moved to Boston years ago, that was what got me started on IPAs.
Harpoon IPA is an absolute staple.
My absolute favorite drink for years and years and years. And still, I love it very much. And then from Left Hand Brewing Company, Longmont, Colorado, we'll be trying their Imperial Stout that's called Wake Up Dead.
Oh, wow. Okay, I haven't tried that.
So,
Left Hand makes the milk stout that's just outstanding.
And they make the Nitro Stout, too, which is a big deal. Yeah, so really excited about all this. Left Hand is really a very good brewery. I like everything I think I've tried from those guys. So looking forward to all of that. We'll talk cigars, of course. We'll talk cheap vodkas and expensive whiskeys. And something we're doing on today's show for the very first time is we'll be delving into what we like to call not the mailbag, but the email bag. Even though email doesn't come in a bag. We'll be answering some emails. So I'm very excited about the email bag. And I don't know if you want to give us a preview if you want to wait, but Ian has composed an email bag song for us for the segment. Is that a tease?
That's my teaser.
Oh,
for
cool!
It, yeah.
I'm very excited. Speaking of teasers, we will also on today's program be bringing you our most popular segment on Smokin' and Toastin'. As we have mentioned before, our most popular segment, which we'll do a little later in the show, is something called Drinking News. And Drinking News is a story that we've taken from the news headlines, not fake news, at least so far as we know. These are legitimate things that actually happen, but they're stories that are often, but not always, about drinking. But they are always stories that are best enjoyed if you've been drinking. And today's Drinking News teaser headline is, "It's only worth it if you enjoy it." Are you okay? You seem like you had a out of tune note there.
It was actually perfectly in tune. It was just wrong.
It was just the wrong note. Okay, gotcha. Perfectly in tune. Just
I'm playing jazz today,
just
man.
not quite right. Yeah, I understand. You're expressing yourself, and I appreciate that about you. Also on today's program, we'll tell you about some more cigars to watch for. Donald Trump, the former president and presidential candidate, has now basically kind of given a backhand insult to people who work in cigar shops. And so we'll tell you about that. I'm not sure where that came from, but all of that plus 15 rare beers that are worth tracking down. And Shiner Beer, right here in our home state of Texas, has opened up a barbecue joint. So we'll tell you a little bit about that. That sounds, barbecue from Shiner, Texas doesn't sound like a bad deal, does it?
Man, you could drive. There's a few stops in Texas, and not far from Shiner is Gonzales, Texas, and the Gonzales City Market.
Yep.
Oh. The barbecue's great. The cheesy potatoes are worth going out of the way
I told you
for.
about. I drove all the way to Shiner to go to the brewery, and they were closed.
Yeah, so they're not open on weekends,
on the weekends,
right?
I know. Yeah.
How crazy is that?
Maybe they should start now that they're going to have a barbecue joint. So we'll tell you a little bit about all of that. It's been a very interesting week in all things spirit, beer, and cigar, and I'm sure, Ian, that you've probably had the opportunity to smoke something interesting this week.
It's funny you should ask.
Would I be correct?
Yes. So I went by Casa this morning on the way here.
That's Casa de Monte Cristo.
Yes.
Yeah.
Casa de Monte Cristo.
Many fine people that are buddies of ours.
Yes, they're so nice over there. And I wandered through the humidor. I was like, I kind of want something different, something a little outside. And I stopped and got a Southern Draw.
Which
Firethorn.
Oh, I haven't had the Firethorn. I'm actually very interested to see what you thought.
So the Firethorn, this was the 6x52 Toro, Habano Rosado wrapper from Ecuador, San Andreas binder from Mexico, and Nicaraguan filler. Mm-hmm. The appearance on this reddish brown, smooth and oily, small veins, dual bands, and red closed foot. Pretty nice cigar, like good solid feel overall. Not super firm, but not soft either. Felt like a well-made cigar. The pre-light sniff on it's got earthy notes, sweet notes, some orange zest, some cedar going on. On the pre-light draw, I used a punch, and it cracked the foot a little bit.
Oh, I hate when that happens, yeah.
That sucks. So I said, well, I'm not going to try pushing that through, so I used a clip.
Okay.
So I clip it. And I got a light draw on it. Of course, I expected a little bit of resistance from the closed foot, which opened up almost immediately when I lit it, but we'll get to that in a minute. I got sweet baking spices, caramel, earth, cedar, leather on the lips. Just a fantastic smell overall.
Nice.
Bold and spicy on the initial light. Big cedar notes, massive smoke. Retro halo cedar and spicy sweet. Cedar really drives the palate on the first third of this. Rich and spicy notes, sweet and earthy. A bit of orange zest, light toast, sweet caramel, and hints of dark fruit going on all the way through. It's a very complex cigar. Retro Hail is cedar and sweet pepper, solid ash. Had a good burn at the first third of this. The second third of this, cedar, caramel, sweet, tangy earthiness revolve around a toasty center of baking spices and dark fruit. Underlying pepper keeps things nice and spicy. This was probably medium to full in flavor on the palate. This was not a light cigar, just FYI. The retrohale is peppery and cedar with sweet toast, solid ash, uneven burn. By this point in time, I had to attend it a time.
And this was box press, right?
No, this is not a box
No,
press.
it's not. Okay.
No, not a box press. You can see that in the picture right here. The last third of this, the crack in the cap is a bit annoying, but manageable. The burn is uneven and needs periodic tending. And I can actually feel a warm and cold side of the draw when I take a draw of this, right?
Yeah,
have you ever had that before?
Absolutely
It was really weird because, like, when you take a draw, one side of it was cool air and one side was
so for example, your top lip might get warmer, but your bottom lip not so much.
Yeah, it was very bizarre.
Or vice versa, yeah.
I don't know that I've ever consciously noticed that before in a cigar.
I have had that happen before.
And I was like, that's really, really weird. So dark fruit moves forward along with bitter, zesty citrus note. Toast and baking spices remain consistent. Retrohale, sweet cedar, and pepper spice. Solid ash, uneven burn. I tended that burn quite a bit, actually, along with the crack cap.
I wouldn't be expecting that from Southern Draw.
So I wasn't either, and I was a little disappointed by that. So the price on this cigar was $11. I'm giving it a 3.5 because of my smoking experience with the burn primarily, because the crack cap could just be my fault, even though I've punched many cigars and not cracked them.
Right.
But I'm not even going to take the crack cap into consideration on that. But the tending it and the annoyance of all that was really knocks it to a 3.5. At $11, if I didn't have any issues with it, I probably would have given it a straight 5. It was a great flavor. I love the flavors on this cigar and really enjoyed that part of it.
And for those who are not familiar with our price to quality ratings, it is a 1 to 10 scale. But a 5 is a good rating. It means you got what you paid for.
Yeah.
So if you rate something a 5, it's like saying, it's
really good at
it's really good at its price.
Yeah.
Right. If we rate something above a 5, it means it really punched above its weight class and delivered something that could have potentially been more expensive, and you almost wouldn't have minded.
Right.
Not that anybody wants to pay more, but you understand.
Right.
Had you bought it at a higher price, you wouldn't be going, I got ripped off on this one. And then finally, at a 3.5, you're not saying the cigar wasn't good. You're simply saying, yeah, compared to other cigars you've smoked at $11, this one didn't quite measure up. And so it's an interesting thing, because I would not have guessed when you said Southern Draw. I'm immediately thinking,
I love Southern
this
Draw.
is going to be a 5 or a 6.
And again,
least,
I'll tell you, I love the flavors on this, but the smoking experience was not great.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I'm finding more and more. Most cigars, very few cigars that I smoke these days have I been disappointed in the flavor. It does happen, but very few disappoint you there. It's the construction and the smoking experience that is potentially more questionable when I have one that's not as good. So I went the complete other direction from a pricier cigar. I did an El Cheapo special, and I will tell you about that when we come back. Plus, we'll start drinking, and we'll get into our discussion about inexpensive vodkas and expensive whiskeys. All to come on today's episode of Smokin' and Toastin'. Thank you for listening. We'll be right back. Welcome back. It's Smokin' and Toastin'. Our program is all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. By the way, we're just able to confirm before the show started today that our special guest for next week's show is none other than one of our good friends and our cocktail expert here on Smokin' and Toastin', Mr. Chris Morris will be joining us.
He's so fun.
And so he will do one of two things, I can guarantee you this. He'll either come and mix us a cocktail so elaborate and crazy that it's just like impressive from the get-go, or he might come in and go, here's a simple one everybody can make at home, because he's certainly capable of both. I mean, he could put what was that movie where Tom Cruise was the bartender?
The Cocktail.
Yeah, he could put Tom Cruise to shame.
I've actually never watched that movie.
Yeah, I've only seen like pieces of it, believe it or not. I've never watched it, but I've seen excerpts of them, shaking around the shakers and all that kind of stuff. Tom Cruise, he's a very talented guy. He can fly jet airplanes, he can manage football stars, and he can even shake up a cocktail every once in a while. I guess he's had to learn to do all of his own stunts. Well, welcome back to Smokin' and Toastin'. This is show number 322 for us. We are very excited about our program. Our second week syndicated. Ian told you about his cigar earlier, and I want to bring mine to the table, but I do so with a little less fanfare because It's an El Cheapo special this week. I think it's
Is the
important.
brand literally called El Cheapo?
No,
'Cause
but
that'd be amazing.
it almost is. I smoked the JR Cuban alternative to the Cohiba Robusto.
Oh, that almost exactly translates to El Cheapo. I don't know my Spanish all that well, but I'm pretty sure it's close.
So if any of you have ever shopped at JR Cigar online or if you've been to their store in New York, which I have, you know about the JR alternatives. They have a JR alternative blend for almost every blend of cigar that exists today. It's amazing. And JR says on their website that the JR Alternative brand has been their best-selling brand for over 40 years.
Wow.
So these alternatives, these El Cheapo knockoffs, basically, sell better than the brands that they're made to knock off of.
There's an irony there, right?
There certainly is. Let me read this to you from their website, all right? JR Alternatives are handmade cigars that are crafted at the most prestigious factories in the world with 100% long filler tobaccos from famous brands such as Macanudo, Excalibur, and Monte Cristo. They're available in an array of sizes and blends and made to be as close to the real deal premium blends as possible. That leaves a lot of room for interpretation.
There's some
right?
wiggle room there, yeah.
These alternative cigars are economically priced due to their bulk manufacturing and less expensive bundle packaging. Plus, they're just as good as any other top-quality brand on the market. And as to the JR Cuban alternatives, they are blended differently using primarily Nicaraguan tobacco, according to JR. So, let's get right to basics here, all right? These are not just as good as any other top-quality brand.
Anybody that says it's just as good but cheaper, that's dubious.
Probably want to scratch your head about that a little bit to begin with. So right away, I can tell you they're not just as good as any other top quality brand. They're just not. But that said, they don't cost as much as those brands either, not by a long shot. And here's another, or the other, I suppose, elephant in the cigar lounge. I've smoked Cuban Cohiba Robustos before. Had a good friend that sent me like half a box one time.
Nice.
Just like, hey, I was thinking of you. I was like, man, I have such good friends.
You should think of me more often.
Yeah. But this is not, it's definitely not a real alternative to those Cuban Cohiba Robustos in the sense of it being anything like them. Now, I suppose if you were to apply this description really loosely, it might work. Like, I don't have any Cuban Cohibas in my humidor, so as an alternative, I'll smoke this one. You could probably qualify it that way. But to me, the real question is, look, they're cheap, okay? Are they any good? Are they worth it? So that's what we'll go for in this review. The cigar itself was a little bit rustic, as you can see here. Certainly more so than a real Cuban Cohiba is likely to be. It was nicely packed, appropriately spongy when I squeezed it, and wrapped with the JR Alternative band that you can see there. I use, and by the way, for those of you listening on the radio, we have a video version of this. It's on YouTube if you ever want to see what we're talking about. We show examples of it and stuff. But anyway, I used a punch cutter and I checked it out. Really nice pre-light notes, deep tobacco, and a hint of leather. And those same two along with some earthiness when I did the cold draw before I lit it. When I first lit the Cohiba Robusto alternative, my initial puffs reminded me of back when I first started smoking cigars. I enjoyed the tobacco taste and aromas, even though I didn't know the first thing about detecting tobacco notes and flavors, right? So that's kind of how this was. Rich tobacco, but not a lot of identifiable notes. Now, once I got it going, I was able to pull out a pepper note through the basic tobacco flavor, and I'd also say there was a bit of a wood note underneath. Let's say oak. That's what it seemed closest to. Not a lot of subtleties beyond that, but certainly not unpleasant. The first third smoked well. The burn was uneven, but not problematic. Draw was good. Overall flavor was pleasant. I worked really hard to see if I could identify any additional notes in the second third, but the vibe stayed basically the same. A little bit of pepper tang on the tongue. So, yeah, did seem like maybe it was Nicaraguan tobacco. Ash was a bit flaky, but held on well enough. About halfway mark on it, I got a less pleasant note and actually checked the cigar to make sure the band wasn't burning. But
I've done that before.
I hadn't smoked it down that far yet. Fortunately, that particular note did not linger, and the final third maintained the same, flavor profile. Not a barn burner, not unpleasant. It did get a little harsh toward the end, but most of the cigar was actually quite enjoyable. So I took a look at some posts online from people who had smoked JR alternatives. And I found that a lot of entries that talked about them not being consistent from cigar to cigar. One reviewer said he thought that there were several different tobacco blends even in the same bundle of cigars that he had bought. With regard to the particular one I smoked, the blend seemed a bit one-dimensional, but I did enjoy the flavors. The burn wasn't perfect, but it wasn't an issue in the enjoyment of the cigar. The room note wasn't one that's going to, get you a lot of compliments from non-smokers, but it wasn't bad. So if it seems like I entered this with lower expectations, you're darn right I did. That's exactly what I did, in fact. But that said, I really can't say the cigar was a disappointment, and that, of course, is mostly because of the price. Regular price for a bundle of 20 JR Cuban Alternative Cohiba Robustos, $51.40 for 20. By contrast, JR's price for the Drew Estate Factory Smokes, the Drew Estate Super Discount brand, in the Maduro Robusto is $38.95. So that makes these a little under $2. That makes those a little under $2 per stick, and the JR Cuban Alternative to Cohiba Robusto about $2.50.
It's easy for you to say.
I enjoyed factory smokes from time to time, although they do have that slightly funky note
occasionally
that I can't identify. That's not my favorite. That note was not present in the JR. So I'm going to say it really depends on what you're expecting. If you're expecting it to be anywhere close to the experience of a Cuban Cohiba, you're going to be wildly disappointed. But for a dog walker stick, something to smoke when you mow the lawn, or as I do sometimes when I'm driving with the top down, not a bad option. Your cigars might not be consistent throughout the bundle, but all that said, I'll recommend it for the right situation. And as for price to quality, it's pretty hard to argue with. Based on the particular cigar I smoked this week, I'd give it a price to quality rating of a 6. Definitely worth $2.50. Just don't expect it to smoke like a $40 Cuban Cohiba.
Not happening.
Or an $8 AJ Fernandez or Rocky Patel.
Right.
Yeah, so. All right, we got to take a break. We're running a little overtime, and we'll be right back at Smokin' and Toastin', all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars.
Oh, I do love you.
Nice. Welcome back. It's Smokin' and Toastin', the program all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. My name is Cruz. My drinking partner and fellow showman, Mr. Ian Barry, is with us here today. And Ian, this would be like, talk about a nightmare trip. A guy named Adler, Mr. Ambler.
Ambler.
I don't have his first name, but his last name was Ambler. Was on an airline recently, a United flight. Checked his baggage, which included a sealed bottle of whiskey, and not just any whiskey, by the way. It was the Glenmorangie A Tale of Cake. Are you familiar with the Tale of Cake?
Yeah, I have a bottle at the house.
Yeah. So
Fantastic.
this is not an inexpensive whiskey, right? Yeah, it's not like it's
It's fantastic though.
It's 449 pounds on Amazon UK is what it sells for. So
Really?
Yeah. So that's
So
pretty
I
expensive.
bought mine
pretty expensive
a year
bottle of
ago,
whiskey.
and I remember coming in at about $90. I think.
So I think you got a good deal, or at least it
or I got it when it came
out.
out before everyone went, "Holy crap, this is good."
Yeah, exactly. So it was sealed when new, and he put it in his bags and checked his bag, which is the appropriate way to travel with something like that. When he got to his destination, and opened up his bag, his bottle of whiskey had been opened, and a third of it was gone.
What?
So he got back with United Airlines and says, "Hey, at United, bottle of expensive scotch in checked bag arrived, opened, and a third gone. No leakage. It was sealed new and packed when packed and seal broken by opening. Your baggage handlers are thieves." Can you imagine
gosh.
them going through there and going, "Hey, dude, check it out, bottle of whiskey.
So you're
Let's
gonna
have some."
Just take some. It's one thing
get
if the
back
bottle is open, you'd be like, "Oh, maybe I did drink a little more than I thought." But
But
come
it's not-
on,
it's
it's
not
not
like they-
even opened.
It's not like they took it out of the bag and kept it. They took it out, poured themselves a number of drinks, and then put it back in. Yeah. So
Somebody filled their flask.
yeah, so I felt bad for Mr. Ambler and thought I would share his story. If any of you have similar stories or things that have happened to you, we do have. And by the way, we're going to be opening up the email bag on today's program. We're really excited because it's the first time we'll be doing this. We'll be answering some of your questions via email. You can email us very easily. The address is ST, that's for smoking and toasting, ST at rfcmedia.com. And remember, you can email us about anything. Questions about something we, talked about, or reviews, questions about, how to light a cigar properly or something like that. Or just
dating advice.
It could be, relationship questions. Is the earth really round or flat? Things like that. We'll go for any of those. We're happy to jump into the fray and try to knock one down for you. So our first beer to taste today is the Wild Texas Kolsch from the Texas Beer Company. You are obviously slightly ahead of me on this endeavor.
I'm doing research, sir. I'm doing research on said beer.
What is your research
So Wild
revealed
Texas
so far?
Kolsch, brewed with solar and people power, comes in at about 4.8% alcohol by volume. Hill Country Conservancy, here forever, proud supporter of. Let's see. 1% of purchase goes to Hill Country Conservancy until December of this year.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome, with a minimum $1,000 donation. That's a cool thing. Mm-hmm. I like donations. I like this this can. They have the kind of a greened out countryside, hill countryside, and the blue bonnets, of course.
And those of you who are not from Texas, which I know most of you aren't, but Texas, the blue bonnet is almost like a sacred flower in Texas. It blooms every spring. In fact, the blue bonnets are already in bloom in the hill country.
You
now.
can do what they call the blue bonnet trail too through hill country.
Right,
it's unbelievable. Like the fields and the hills just bloom in this color.
And I don't know if I've ever seen a bluebonnet outside of the state of Texas. Have you?
No, I don't think.
I don't think I ever have.
I mean, I'm sure like you get up towards because I've seen them as north as Dallas, so maybe you get up towards Oklahoma, maybe.
Maybe I don't know.
So this is nice.
Back to the Kolsch. It is nice. I was going to say I'm for it. It's got a nice crispness like you want a Kolsch to have, and it's got a little flavor on the finish, letting you know you're not just drinking some sort of macro beer.
Yes, it's got a malty roundness that it finishes with. It I kind of like. It doesn't finish bitter. It finishes with a malty round kind of sweetness to it that I'm kind of enjoying.
Yeah, and I know you're a malt guy. I'm a hops guy. You're a malt guy.
It's lacy and sticks to the glass.
This has got enough of both, I think, to keep us both happy.
No, this is
enough
nice.
Hops, enough.
It's got a little bit of hop to crisp up the finish, but it's got that roundness to sweeten it up too.
I'm actually really enjoying this. Now, we are not familiar with this brewery at all.
This is
a new
the first
one
beer
for
I've
us.
had from them.
And there are so many breweries in the state of Texas now. I think there's so many breweries everywhere.
I think that's happening everywhere.
Yeah, I think it is.
I think if wherever you're listening to this from, you probably are standing close to quite a few breweries.
So one of the things that has happened in the craft beer industry over the past several years, including, I'd say about a year or so prior to the pandemic, is that more and more very small breweries, which were basically large enough to be a small brewery and a tap room, opened up. And they didn't worry about distributing their beer in cans or bottles maybe at first. And then when they did start to bottle or can their beer, they didn't have distribution into the grocery stores and the liquor stores and all of that. What we're seeing now is the maturing of those little breweries that did well, made it through the pandemic, just started to develop a following. We're seeing them now be able to get their beers into the Spexes and the Total Wines and the other places where people shop for beer and spirits, as well as in some cases the grocery stores. And so you're beginning to see things like, I bet these guys were around just as a tap room just a few years ago, and if it's not in our area, that's why we hadn't heard of them. Right. Now they're branching out and they're in stores, and so we're seeing a lot more craft beer making its way into stores. What's interesting about it, though, is as locality becomes more and more of a thing in craft beer, as the stores where I shop, for example, seem to carry more and more regional beers and Texas beers.
Yeah, most places have a little regional section now. Yeah.
It's really cool, and I like it, except it's offering less shelf space for what might be some great breweries from other parts of the country that we're less likely to get to try.
Well, you were talking about breweries and breweries doing their distribution locally and things like that. I think there's a large bunch of breweries out that don't even think so much about distribution and just want to be that local tap room. Like we get this big, we sell out to maybe some local bars.
Sure.
And if they do distribute, they're not worried about going too far outside of their realm, because I think that whole idea, like from way back when, where breweries, you just go down to your local brewery and have a beer, is coming back.
Yeah, I think so. And particularly in the restaurants and bars that are kind of in the radius of that.
Yeah.
Like I was in Baton Rouge and New Orleans this weekend, and every place I went, you had the typical macro brews on tap, and then there would be some local and regional breweries that I was not familiar with, some that I was, but some that I was not familiar with. And that's what I had a tendency to always want to try and sample, because those are the ones I haven't had and man, I had some good beers. In fact, I brought a few back with me that I'll be bringing on the show in subsequent weeks. But Urban South has some great stuff going on there. Parish has some great stuff. And even Abita. I found an Abita beer that we will taste probably on next week's show. That is one they sell only in Louisiana, even though some of their products are sold.
Yeah, you can get them pretty regional.
The
and Turbo Dog, I think, is their
Turbo Dog.
That's a great beer.
And Purple Haze. Turbo Dog and Purple Haze are their two big ones. Yeah. So anyway, but they're a great brewery, and we look forward to trying some more of their stuff. This particular beer is called The Boot, and the reason it's called The Boot is that's how the shape of Louisiana is described sometime, as the boot on the foot of the U.S. So. Anyway, I'll be looking forward to that. It was a really good weekend of drinking, as New Orleans trips often are. But I enjoyed it very much. Still to come on today's program, we're going to do a couple things. We of course will be bringing you drinking news. We promised that, and we'll be delving into the email bag. Now I mentioned this earlier, but the email bag is. We're doing this for the first time on the program. We used to do the show live on Thursdays, and we always had a lot of people commenting in the comments section that would roll as the show went on. Now that we record the show in advance, which is part of what we have to do for, in order to send it up to our syndication company, we have to find a new way to interact with listeners. So if you
miss you, Bruce. We miss you, Brian.
Yes, we do. You need to email us, both of you guys. If you want to take issue with something we said, do it. st@rfcmedia.com.
st@rfcmedia.com.
If you want to agree with us, if you want to disagree with us, if you want to, tell us how wrong we are, if you want to just say hi, tell us about something you like. Tell us something about something you didn't like. These are all great things. And then, as we said earlier, if you need relationship advice, we're here to help.
we're definitely the ones to go to.
Yeah. Yeah, you got that right. So anyway, a lot of good things to come on the program today, including, by the way, we'll be telling you about the 5 best vodkas under $30, and then we're also going to tell you about 12 expensive whiskeys that are worth the splurge. In fact, we'll be getting into a little bit of that coming up, so I'm pretty excited about it. Ian, off the top of your head, what's your favorite inexpensive vodka, would you say?
So I go local, Fox and Seeker. And it's pretty much just go local. So Dripping Springs, Fox and Seeker are pretty much the ones.
Dripping Springs is definitely good, and I'll add a third one to that. Again, local to our area, so everybody might not be able to get it. But there's a vodka called Space City Vodka.
I haven't tried that one. I remember you telling me about that, but I haven't tried that one yet.
Absolute favorites. We'll have to. One thing we have not done, and perhaps we should, is a vodka blind taste test.
There's that.
That would be kind of fun.
Or a vodka you go blind taste test.
Because that's the thing about vodka, man.
You start off being able to see. You know what? You don't have to be blind. You can see the vodka and not know what it is because it's all clear.
I was at a restaurant in Las Vegas I started. The casino is Mandalay Bay, but for some reason I was about to tell you I was in the casino called the Mandalorian. I don't know why. I don't know why I was about to go there, but in any case, they had a restaurant.
You're a nerd.
They had a restaurant there called Red Square, and they would bring you like a flight of vodkas. The vodkas would come in test tubes, and the test tubes were set into this frozen red brick of ice, which had little holes for the test tubes to go in. So that was the first time I ever did any vodka side by side like that. But that would be a very fun show to do and declare, what's the smoothest, what's the tastiest. There's a lot of different ways vodka's made. So,
smooth.
All right, we got to put that. We got to put that on the.
It's an idea. It's going to be on the docket,
the planning calendar, on the docket for future, and still to come. Inexpensive vodkas, expensive whiskeys, and as if all of that wasn't enough, ladies and gentlemen, more tastings and drinking news. It's all on the way.
In the beginning,
Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting. Our program is all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. So I'm going to talk about spirits while Ian pours some craft beer. The beer for this segment is Harpoon.
She threatened me with a good time.
Harpoon's Juicier Hazy IPA. All right, so an article from Insider Monkey. The 5 best vodka brands, they say, under $30. And they start with number 5. They give it a score of 6. I guess that's on a 1 to 10 scale. Number 5 is Grey Goose Vodka, which they put the average price for the 750 milliliter bottle at $24.09.
Yeah, Grey Goose is solid. I'll go with that.
I would agree with that. Grey Goose is solid, is a perfect way to describe it. It's not my absolute favorite, but it's one you can always count on. Like if you're at a bar and you're ordering a vodka drink, they ask you what vodka you want. You may ask for a couple and they don't have it. You can always go, do you have Grey Goose? They always do, and you're always
like Grey Goose is like a 3 on a neutral scale of 1 to 5.
Absolutely. I agree. Absolutely. Scoring an 8 out of 10. And at number 4 on their list is Tito's Handmade Vodka, which comes out of Austin. What's your position on Tito's? Where you at on
Well, you're right. It comes out of Austin.
Yeah. But Tito's, to me...
Tito's has a little mystery about it as to where they're made.
Yeah, exactly.
They call themselves Texas Craft Vodka. Mm-hmm. And they come from Texas, but as far as I understand it, and hey, email me if I'm wrong. But
st@rfcmedia.com.
st@rfcmedia.com. But as far as I understand it, it's made in Indiana.
I've heard this rumor as well. So Tito's is certainly an Austin, Texas based
that
company.
doesn't make the vodka bad. It just means it's a little misleading.
Average price a little over $19 a bottle. Here's my thing on Tito's. I really like Tito's. However, as you know, and as you regularly mock me for, I like vodka martinis, which you claim are not even martinis, but they're something.
See, I like martinis. You like vodka martinis.
This is where this goes every time, right? But I like vodka martinis, and I like Tito's vodka for certain vodka drinks, but it's not my favorite for martinis. There's something about the flavor of Tito's that I feel like doesn't work quite as well in martinis as some others. That's just me. But that comes in. I do like Tito's, though, and it comes in on this list at number 4. At number 3 is Stoli. Stolichnaya is the way that you...
Stoli.
Yeah, Stoli is easier to say. Average price of about $20, score of 8. It's one of the brands in the Stoli Group's portfolio. It is a Russian vodka, and it's been around since 1938. I don't know if you knew that. That's number 3 on the list. So at number 2... And I want to disagree with him on this one. I wouldn't have put this on the list. I definitely wouldn't have put it this high. Smirnoff.
Nah.
Yeah, I think it's fine. But I will only go to Smirnoff if all the brands we just mentioned are not available.
That's like a number 1 on the neutral list. And I'm not sure which direction the neutral list goes.
Yeah.
You can, that's subjective.
They gave it a score of 9. And it's, there's nothing wrong with it. It just doesn't rate with the others to me. That's just my opinion. Number 1, let's see what they did. Kettle One.
Kettle One.
What's your take on Kettle One?
I can go with Kettle One.
I like Kettle One.
Kettle One's fine. Kettle, again,
it's a Dutch vodka.
Yeah, Kettle One's, there's a lot of vodkas out there. They're just so neutral that I don't make a lot of distinction between them.
Right.
To me, once you get to the $20 to $30 mark, I don't know that there's any difference.
Right. It may have been distilled more times or whatever, but you're not going to have that much difference in the flavor, right?
Yeah. So for me, it's like that. And so if you're, I think my brother would disagree. He's a fan of better vodkas, things like that.
Okay, so this settles it. We are going to do a vodka blind taste test. We need to start thinking about who we want to invite on as a guest to do that test with us. And I'm already thinking about Maria Todd.
Yeah, I just think that when you start spending a lot of money on vodka, you're distilling out flavor, and better vodka is just more distilled out and less flavor.
Vodka is the tofu of spirits.
Yes.
It doesn't come with a lot of flavor of its own, but it absorbs and enhances the flavor.
And I'm not discounting that there's a place for vodka. Vodka needs to be there for certain drinks. You know?
Right, absolutely.
You can't have a vodka martini without vodka.
Absolutely.
Although it's better with Citadel Gin.
Dude, Gimlet. The gimlet,
yes,
that's
correct.
a vodka thing all the way, and it works. Let's talk real quickly about this beer. This is from Harpoon Brewery, one of my absolute favorite breweries
You
in
were
the world.
halfway through what I poured. I'm assuming you like this.
Yeah, I'm digging this in a big way. This is 7.2%. It's a hazy IPA. Obviously, I'm the IPA guy.
It does not drink 7.2%.
No, it doesn't. How do you like it, though?
I like it, actually. It has a fruity pebble and bitter finish. I don't know how else to describe it. It's got this fruity pebble thing right before you swallow, and then a bitter thing that just happens.
Yeah.
But the fruity pebble kind of lingers. It's
Harpoon,
really kind of good.
I believe this is a seasonal. I don't think this is available year round. So grab it while you can if they have Harpoon near you.
Yeah, it's also round and juicy, like citrusy juicy right
and
up
delicious.
front too. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
and
pretty
delicious.
good.
I like it a lot. All right, we recommend it, and we will be back to recommend more to you, including a little whiskey tasting coming up. And it's time for the
I'm gonna
email
go for
bag.
a big whiskey tasting.
That's 'cause I'm cleaning too. I love you like I know you forever.
Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting. Our program is all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. And by the way, if you're joining us for the first time, and I know a lot of people probably are because this is only our second week on broadcast radio, welcome to the show. We are so thrilled to have you listening. We are definitely not experts on any of these things, but we do have opinions. And so we'd love to share them with you, and thank you for allowing us to do absolutely that. One of the things that happens here on the program, besides the smoking and the drinking, is that we have a certain number of features that people seem to enjoy. One of them is drinking news. That will be coming up here in a couple of segments. But right now, we're actually launching a brand new feature where we go to the emails that you send to us and try to answer the burning questions of the universe in a little segment we call Cruz and Ian's Email Bag.
So you asked me to write a song for this, and I did. I just wanted to make sure that I wrote it some. That I wrote it. I wrote.
You wrote it.
Words is hard.
Yeah, words are hard.
That I wrote something that had enough gravitas to get across, what we're trying to do here.
Sure.
So
This could be a very serious segment.
I just want you to know. So my song is not as flippant as it could be.
Maybe not as flippant as the drinking news song.
That's right. Drinking news is it's very drinking news.
Right,
You'll hear that in a minute if you haven't heard it before. But
Okay.
so we're gonna start off, a little minor key at the beginning.
I got you. I'm with you.
And here we go. There's a little thing that started out small, and as our listenership numbers began to crawl, the more we talked, the more we watched it grow.
Hey, man, I think that thing's going to explode.
It's Cruz and Ian's email bag, a way for listeners to share the thoughts they had. It's an easy thing to do on your pad or your phone. st@rfcmedia.com.
And there you go. I like it. Sorry, I wasn't ready. This is my first time hearing the song, and I was all wrapped up
I might
in
have
it.
messed up a chord or two.
No,
in there.
I was all wrapped up in it, and I wasn't ready for my cue.
Listen,
but,
I know. So the hours and days that I spent on that since yesterday,
Yes.
I just want you to know the hard work and effort that went into writing the song. So I'll make
and
sure.
we appreciate that. Thank you, sir. All right, so let's go to the email bag and see if there are some questions here that we can potentially answer. Our first one comes from Rhonda T. And by the way,
Just so you know, my first idea for a song, when,
Yeah.
you talked about the email bag, it made me think, okay, well, maybe we have an email sack, and it was going to be something about don't touch my sack. But this is what I came up
you
with.
took it a little more seriously, and I
Yes,
appreciate
well,
that. I appreciate that. By the way, you're welcome to use a fake name. If you don't, I will at least try to determine what your name is, either because you put it on there or because it's in your email address.
If you don't use a fake name, we might make one up for you.
Well, exactly. I got to call you something. So today's first email comes from Rhonda T. And Rhonda writes, "Dear Smoking and Toasting," and I'm saying that because she left the G's on. She didn't use the apostrophes.
That's totally not hip.
Dear Smoking and Toasting, I've heard your show a few times because my brother, who gives me a ride to work sometimes, likes to listen to it in the car. Frankly, I'm a little surprised at the content of your program. You seem to almost joyfully promote smoking and drinking, as if there wasn't a single health risk involved in partaking of these things. I'm sure you know that people actually die as a result of tobacco and alcohol all the time, and even those who don't are exposing themselves to serious risk. How can you two, in good conscience, promote such a dangerous lifestyle? Rhonda T.
Well, that's easy because
Yeah.
I'm a rebel. I mean, come
I'm a
on. I'm
loader,
already a
Daddy.
musician. Like,
A rebel. Well, you know what?
I'm already a musician.
Yeah.
Like, how much lower am I going to go? You know? Like, come on.
At least you're not a DJ.
Smoking makes me look cool.
I came up my career, in the business. I came up through radio. I was a DJ, and I saw recently that, and I'm not making this up, the most desirable jobs, DJ was 2 slots below rodeo clown. I'm talking radio DJ.
You almost made me spit out my
Yeah.
beer.
Now the spinning DJs, they ranked much higher.
Yeah,
but
so that's
but
different.
they're cooler. But anyway, no, you know how I answer this. You're absolutely right. There are some dangers involved. There are not zero health risks to enjoying alcoholic beverages or enjoying cigars. But let me ask you this question: any health risks to a hobby, let's say, like parachuting, jumping out of a plane?
Let's. You know what? I get where you're going with this. Okay, I see.
I'm just saying, people accept those risks when they want to try parachuting out of a plane, right?
Yes.
People say, yeah, you know what? I know there's risk, but I really want to try this. It's something I want to enjoy. Or maybe I do it all the time. Maybe it's something I really enjoy. Maybe there's nothing else like that feeling of floating weightless while you're waiting for your parachute to pop open. I don't know. But I just know that there aren't laws against parachuting and jumping out of a plane with a parachute on, nor should there be, nor should those guys be shut down because of the fact that they operate a business which people, put themselves in potential risk when they use it. I mean, do you drive a car?
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is there are entire industries built around the fact that you're going to be in a wreck?
Right. In
Like,
fact, I saw a lot of those
you're going
billboards.
to be.
Saw a lot of those billboards on the highway this
You're going to be
weekend.
in a wreck,
Yeah.
and we're talking about from collision.
Collision repair to lawyers,
to insurance.
hospitals.
How much is your insurance? Come on.
Yeah, come on.
Like to all that stuff. Like you're going to drive a car. You're going to be in a car.
100%.
And cars, you know what? Unlike tobacco and alcohol, cars kill everybody.
Right. That's right.
Everybody.
Including people who are not using them. Now, I know there's
They
secondhand
kill
smoke
the
and all
elderly.
that.
They kill children. They kill everybody. So, and I'm not saying that smoking is what you should do.
Right.
But if you like to,
Right.
and that's what we're doing, then, enjoy the show.
Well, my thought is just simply that in life you take certain risks. If you take zero risks with your life, you're going to live a very unfulfilling kind of life. Now, I'm not saying go out and throw every bit of caution to the wind. I'm just saying you choose what risk you want to take, and those who may choose this particular risk, we like to talk to you about it and tell you what we enjoy and tell you what we think is worth it. There you go.
Yeah.
What
That's
we
that.
think is worth the risk, right?
That's right.
Yeah, and just because it's worth it for me doesn't mean it's worth it for you, and vice versa, right? Everybody's going to come in at a different place on this scale. So that's my response. So I have absolutely no problems with my conscience about doing the show.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, exactly. Here is an email from T-Bone438. T-Bone says, hello, S&T. Love your show and have been listening since episode 154.
Oh, that's a while.
Yeah,
That's
That's a number of years.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Because we're at 330. What did we
320
332 today.
So, not 332,
Yeah.
322.
I think it's 332, isn't it? Am I wrong about that? I might be.
Yeah, 333 is coming up in June.
That's
so.
right. So we're not at 332 yet. Thank you for straightening me out. This is number 322. In any case, T-Bone has been listening since episode 154, so that's quite a while. He says, I heard you guys mention recently that you would answer questions about drinking and even about relationships, and I wanted to ask you about something that is kind of both. I've been dating a girl who I will call Charlene for about 6 months now, and I really like her. But every time we go out to dinner or even out for drinks, she always manages to order the most expensive drink on the menu. I don't want to sound like a cheapskate here, but it happens every time. I'm a little worried she might be kind of materialistic, and I'm not sure in the long run if I can afford to keep making her happy, if that's the case. But maybe she just likes really good drinks. Like I said, I like her a lot, and I don't know what to do. What would you guys do in my situation?
The real question is, does she order 6 of them?
That is a good question.
Because if she orders one, like I'm going to be honest with you, like that could have been me writing that for a moment there.
Yeah.
Except for my wife's name is not Charlene.
Well, Charlene is in quotes here, so
right. My wife's name is not.
Maybe this was you,
Charlene.
Anybody
ever
call anybody ever call you T-Bone?
And nor am I going to call my wife Charlene because she'd get very angry about it.
Okay, good to know.
But no, here's the deal. Like if we go out, she will a lot of times she'll order, and she doesn't obviously look for the most high priced one, but she likes a really nice drink,
right?
And she'll get the high dollar drinks,
right?
But she doesn't do more than 1 or 2.
And then she calms it down
and
to something more
she'll
reasonably priced.
wander off to something else, or she just she's not slamming them back. So
right.
Generally speaking, by the time I've had 3 or 4 beers, she's finished her 1 or 2.
Now,
so I don't know, like how it kind of comes down to a volume thing there. Is she have 6 of them? Because that's a problem.
Yeah,
and that's a problem in more ways than just your pocketbook.
Well, sure, but also if you think about it, that can you take somebody out to dinner. Let's say you're planning on spending $100 to $150 on dinner for the two of you.
Yeah.
What's going to escalate it higher than that? Let's say you go to a reasonably nice place, not ultra expensive, but someplace nice. What's going to escalate that above that mark? Real simple. Lots of expensive drinks.
Let's go ahead and just point this out, right? Okay, when I was a teenager and into my 20s, you could go out for $50 and have a date. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is $200 now.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. That is $200.
That's $200 now.
That's a little something.
So $150 on dinner is that's a nice dinner and some drinks. If you go to an expensive place and your drinks are going to put you way above that.
Well, and then I would say also, what's your return on investment? If you want to look at it from a purely business standpoint, if you're spending this kind of money on her drinks, is the feeling that you get from being around her, is it worth that? Because if it's not, there's your equation right there, right? In other words,
is she getting mopey and despondent?
Right. Well, is she fun to be around? Does she make you happy when you're together? You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of things to go into here that will let you know whether something's worth it or not. Now, if it's getting to the point where you can't afford it, then you got to sit down and have a little heart to heart.
That's an issue. But there's also another side to this, too. When you're first dating, you go out and you have a few drinks and things like that. You also have to consider this is a good time to figure out whether you like the person you're dating when they've been drinking. Because if you don't, it ain't going to get better.
That's a good point, right? You don't want to
get better. That's a red flag, buddy.
You don't want to be at your wedding reception when you find out, ooh, this person I just married doesn't handle their alcohol very well. You need to know that in advance.
I mean, if you're going to be a drinker, if you're not a drinker, then not a big deal.
Have you ever been out with somebody that got completely wasted on the first date? First date?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, first date, really? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, and then how did you react to that? Do you kind of laugh it off and give them another shot? Or do they...
I went out with someone that not only got a little too trashed on the first date, but I was sitting there wondering what the heck that smell was, and it was her breath. I was like,
"Oh, that's not good."
Oh,
you know what you could try? We learned this in drinking news.
And I'm just trying to how do I get out of this without devastating people's feelings?
Right, exactly. Axe body spray, like the guy in drinking news last week. That's how you do it. All right,
for breath?
We are going to take a break and be back. We have some whiskey to try, and I'm very excited about trying this Oak and Eden Finnish whiskey. Plus, we have some whiskey to tell you about, and that's the expensive whiskeys that are worth the splurge. We'll be right back. It's Smoking and Toasting.
Oh, let me love you a little and help me understand.
Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting. Our show is all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. We are glad to have you along for the ride as Ian uncorks our bottle of whiskey. I want to tell you about some expensive whiskeys that Yahoo Finance says are worth the splurge. Now, I don't know if you take Yahoo Finance's advice about whiskey or not.
Yahoo still exists.
But perhaps you'll take it about finance. Yes, believe it or not.
Remember they had that commercial with Yahoo?
Not as a search engine, of course, but although I do think they still have a search engine that no one uses. But no, they are a news source and do a number of different things. And they have put together a list of whiskeys that are a little more expensive, starting with a $49 recommended price. So they're including that as expensive, but it works upward from there. So at $49, their first recommendation, Breckenridge Reserve Blend Bourbon Whiskey. The Rocky Mountains
I haven't
of Colorado
tried the Breckenridge one.
and the Breckenridge Distillery. It's a high rye bourbon whiskey, aged for a minimum of 3 years. Number 2, we've had this one, Heaven's Door Straight Bourbon Whiskey.
Heaven's Door is outstanding.
Yeah, also in the $49 price range. At number 3, Jim Beam Signature Craft Soft Red Wheat Bourbon Whiskey. Your thoughts, sir?
Haven't tried it.
It's a $50 bottle of whiskey.
All right, so here the crazy thing about so Jim Beam and Jack Daniels both have this thing.
Right.
Okay, that's standard
Like their
label.
name label
like your
thing.
Jack Daniels Old No. 7 black label and the Jim Beam white label, regular Jim Beam. I'm not a fan at all. I think they're terrible.
Right.
Everything else they make is great.
Yeah.
It's how do they do that?
I don't know.
Like everything else they make is great.
Because Jack Daniels, to use the
And
Old
the
No.
most
7.
popular of both of those
Yeah, and
is terrible.
Prove
me wrong.
So let's try it then. The Jim Beam Signature Craft Soft Red Wheat
I would
Bourbon
totally
Whiskey.
try it. Yeah. So I won't snob on it, man. Like I said, I used to snob on Jim Beam because Jim Beam's like, meh.
They say it has a little extra wheat kick in the mix, maybe favorable for some drinkers. Number 4 is the Copper Sea Bontico Crag Straight Rye Malt Whiskey, priced at about $73 from New Paltz, New York, in the Hudson
Smells
Valley.
like spicy bubblegum.
Yeah.
Maybe even a little cotton candy going on.
Number 5, Widow Jane 10-year-old bourbon. Have you tried Widow Jane?
Widow Jane, I have.
Yeah,
Widow Jane.
$77 bottle.
How much?
$77 for the 10-year-old.
I don't know if I tried the 10-year-old or I don't know if is the standard bottle of Widow Jane the 10-year-old or is there a different
I don't think
know.
so. I think the 10-year-old is a step
special
up.
one. So I don't know if I tried that particular bottle then.
At $80 and number 6, Eagle Rare 10-year bourbon.
The Eagle Rare 10-year is outstanding.
Yeah, it really
It's
good.
absolutely outstanding.
Yeah. And number 7, at $100, Elijah Craig Barrel Proof Bourbon Whiskey.
Yes.
Yes.
I have about a sip left in mine at the house. And
It's so good.
It's so good.
At $104, a Never Sink Select Bourbon Whiskey.
I never even
aged
heard
in
of that.
barrels that were previously used for a brandy cider mix by Never Sink. Strong notes of apple, they say, really boost it to a different level.
I like apple.
Highland Park 18-year-old single malt.
Oh, yes.
At $175.
Yes.
Is
Highland Park
number
is
9 on the
delicious anyway.
list. Yamazaki 12-year-old single malt whiskey at $192. And Jameson Bow Street, 18-year Irish whiskey.
Never had that one.
$200. And the Macallan single malt Scotch Sherry Oak Cask, 18 years, coming in at a price of $415.
So I've had that, and it is fantastic.
Now, what's interesting, what I liked about
but
this
that's
article,
gone up in price over
Yeah.
the last 10 years, like by double.
what I liked about this article is they didn't just go for here are all the ones you can buy for $3,000 a bottle. Like, these are expensive, but if you wanted to go after one of these, you could save up a little money and do it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. What do you think of this Oak and Eden?
Well, we're going to talk about it in the next segment, too, I'm sure, because delicious bubblegum wonderfulness.
Ooh, yes, we will be getting right back to this, and we'll be getting to some drinking news coming up. On Smoking
Like a
and Toasting.
citrusy finish on it. Crazy.
Surrounded by a moat.
Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting. Craft beer, fine spirits, hand-rolled cigars, and in this case, the fine spirit is a whiskey with a Spire inside the
love
bottle.
this thing. Yes.
And Ian, talk to me about your take on this Oak and Eden. We sampled this in the last segment, and coming back, I'm like, I couldn't stop sipping this during the break.
This is fantastic.
Yeah, it's
So this
really
is the rye with Roar and Sons, rye whiskey finish in an Indian pale ale soaked oak spiral.
Okay, so this was not soaked then in a something like a stout or
No.
like a strong ale. This was
IPA.
an IPA that the Spire was soaked in. So.
This rye whiskey is infused with an American oak, Rahr and Sons Dadgum Soak Spire. It's bright, fresh, crisp, and accented with notes of citra and lemon drop hops.
Boy, I
we
get the
created a
citra
lively
on
new
this.
take on whiskey. There's a lot more it says on here. But let's talk about this. Like, so the first thing, like on my nose, bubble gum, like 100% bubble gum. I'm talking about like the stuff that you get when you buy the pack of baseball cards that has the weird white
Topps
dust
baseball.
on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like straight up, and I love it. It's so good. And then it has little like notes of like toffee on the back end of it that are just fantastic.
It reminds me a little bit. I guess it's the IPA finish, but it reminds me a little bit of what was it? Glenfiddich that had the IPA cask.
Yes.
Whiskey.
Yes.
The difference is though is that this is a rye, so it starts out much spicier. Right?
Yes, and then this has that brightness because it has a little bit of sour from the hop kind of flavor thing. You almost get that, and it's got a citrus kind of finish
Big
to
time
it.
on the finish. Yeah.
It's bubblegum, it's citrus, it's so many good things that you might not get to take this home, my
It's a
friend.
quite excellent bottle of whiskey, isn't it?
It's really good. What
Yeah.
what does this go for?
I knew you were going to ask me that, and I was trying to remember because I bought it several weeks ago, despite the fact I haven't opened it yet.
That's
I wanna
bizarre.
I want to say it's in the $60
This is
range.
outstanding.
Yeah.
I will buy this immediately. They're directly affecting sales. They also in their hubris have a dongle on here that says Liquid Gold open to see our most recent awards with just a list of awards that they've gotten. But you know what? Damn. It's really good. Like, it's real good.
It is good, and not only is it good, but it has a little of that sort of like magic pixie dust effect.
Yeah.
You know, after you swallow it, you're like, I feel nice. You know what I'm talking about? And that puts us in a perfect place to refill our whiskey
I'm going to let you do that because I got a song to sing.
and go for a little drinking news.
A drinking news. Now it's time for drinking news. Drinking news. Now it's time for drinking news. A Florida man with one arm said he had a gator for a pet. When asked about his absent arm, he said,
I had to take my gator to the vet.
drinking news. Now it's time for drinking news.
Cheers, y'all.
I
And
Rowdy.
Reminder, I guess, a reminder for those of you who are new to the program. The Drinking News is where we bring you yes, please. It's where we bring you a story that was in the news someplace. These aren't from the Onion; they aren't made up. A story that was in the news someplace that we are bringing back to you. That is sometimes, although not always, but often about drinking. But it is always most appropriate to hear, to consume, to listen to when you've been drinking.
It's a beautiful thing.
And today's drinking news story brings a fresh perspective to a slogan you may have heard recently. It's only worth it if you enjoy it. Remember, we've talked about that on this show. It's the Michelob Ultra slogan. It's only worth it if you enjoy it. Just out of curiosity, how bad were the slogans that Michelob Ultra's ad agency suggested, but that they didn't go with, right? They didn't decide to use. I mean, to be worth
To be a fly on the wall in that meeting, right? Can you imagine?
To be worse than it's only worth it if you enjoy it. I mean, they must have been unbelievable. We can only assume that they must have rejected ideas like, why have water when you can have watery beer? Or maybe low carbs, low calories, low taste. Or maybe even Michelob Ultra, because you didn't really want a beer anyway. Would have to be delivered in that, that kind of gravelly voice. Because you really didn't want a beer anyway. In any case, America's favorite beer-flavored water is a part of today's drinking news story, where we report on, wouldn't you know it, a Florida man who got himself in trouble with the law a little earlier this year.
No, say it isn't so.
40-year-old Michael Serrata caught Florida deputies' attention when they came upon his car on a Cape Coral road just before midnight one evening last month, according to the Lee County Sheriff's Office. As reported in the Miami Herald, when the officer's car approached Gleason Parkway, something caught their eye. It was a black 2018 Mercedes-Benz C300 sedan parked in the right-hand lane facing southbound. There was no traffic at the time, and the vehicle had its lights on, blocking all traffic on that side of the road. According to the report, the vehicle was, quote, just sitting there. It also adds the deputies crept up behind the car and tried to determine if it had been abandoned, but it had not, because inside they found Florida man Michael Serrata sitting alone in the front passenger seat. Serrata refused to give a breath sample. Surprise, surprise. But deputies said he had the odor of an alcoholic beverage, quote, emanating from his facial area, end quote.
From his facial area.
Is that cop speak or what?
From the proximity of the facial...
Yeah, as well as bloodshot, watery eyes and a slurred, delayed, repetitive speech pattern, according to the affidavit. Multiple open alcohol containers were observed between Serrata's legs, as well as in the front cup holders. Officers said the suspect was unable to speak based on his level of intoxication. Officers from the Cape Coral Police Department were called to assist, and while they were waiting for the backup, a deputy observed Serrata reach between his legs, grab an unopened beer, and crack it open right there on the spot in front of the cops. Now,
hey, man. When you're thirsty.
Yeah. The deputy attempted to grab
head for the mountains, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Head for bush beer.
The deputy attempted to grab the open can from Serrata when he began to resist and pull away. Once they got him out of the car, standardized field sobriety evaluations could not be completed due to the suspect being...
This is a short-sighted...
And I'm quoting here.
This is a short-sighted police officer.
Yeah.
Because if you just let him drink a little bit more at that point, he's going to be easier to take in.
Well, even at this point, he was, quote, unable to support his own weight. And continuously was actively resisting deputies. After a brief investigation, the deputy found probable cause to arrest the man. Charges included driving under the influence and resisting an officer. The Florida man apparently resisted enough to wind up with some minor abrasions, so he was taken to Lee Memorial Hospital as a, quote, disorderly subject, end quote, where he required the assistance of security guards and a wheelchair, and ultimately went to the Lee County Jail in apparent good health and without further incident. Now, back at the scene, before the Mercedes was towed, deputies took photographs of multiple open containers of Michelob Ultra in the cup holders of the car's center console.
Wait a second. How much Michelob Ultra do you need to drink? I'm telling you,
this raises a number of questions, and that is the most piercing one. How many Michelob Ultras do you have to drink to get that completely wasted?
Dude, that's a show right there. That's a show we have to do.
I mean, they come in a 30-pack, I think. Would that do it? Or is there a 50-pack?
And oddly enough, that 30-pack weighs just as much as a 12-pack from any other company.
Right. I mean, do they come in a 50-pack? I'm not even convinced that would get the job done. You know what I'm saying? The report does say there were several open 24-packs of Bud Light in the car as well. So, not much better, but it might have helped him along the way. In any event, I certainly hope that Serrata enjoyed his extremely weak beers, because as we all know from being told so in countless advertisements, it's only worth it if you enjoy it. Reporting live from the holding cell in Lee County, Florida, where there's some guy in here who really needs to pee. My name is Cruz, and that is your
Drinking News, Drinking News. That's our time for Drinking News.
Cheers, y'all. So, yeah. How much Michelob Ultra?
That's a show all its own.
Because he was S-faced. I mean, he wasn't just like a little
yeah.
gypsy,
Oh,
right?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, he was completely gone.
That's hammer effed.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. So I just want to mention that this Oaken Eden Ryan Spire is the name of this whiskey.
Oh, my gosh, it's so good.
These guys are from Bridgeport, Texas, this distillery. And they call this finished whiskey because, and I don't know, Ian, can we just make sure? I want to show that to the camera in the easiest way so they can see that spire in there.
I can't tell on the camera.
Yeah.
See, is this one better?
Yeah. There we go. Maybe we'll switch over to that one. John says that one.
See the oak
Right, you can see the Spire
there.
in there, yeah. So that's how they finish it. Rather than putting it into barrels, it's finished in bottle. And I got to tell you, this is really, really good, Ian.
Yeah,
This is not a.
This is going to be a very soon purchase for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
And this is by the way, label batch number 3, bottle 137.
Yeah, so they've got
And
that
bottled
written
at
on
90
here.
proof, so
And
a little overproof.
Yeah, 43% alcohol by volume, and it's got a little
so
bit of
good.
that overproof vibe to it, but not a lot. It still goes down pretty smooth.
I love one of my favorite things about it. Just the aftertaste is so good. Like wow,
because it's that bubble gum and that
the spice, that rice spice.
Yeah, the rice spice, which just comes back. Nice little whiskey hug, not too embarrassing, but it's there.
The problem I'm going to have is when I bring this home. My wife, not only does she love rye whiskeys, but she's going to taste this and be like, "I'll never see it again."
That's pretty good.
It's like when I bring home any whistle pig. It's kind of like throwing it out in the backyard or
I
something.
understand. So I want to talk about something. We don't do a lot of politics here on the show, and try to remain, reasonably neutral on political things, except if we get really pissed off. But I don't know how to take this. As those of you who watch anything political know, former President Donald Trump is running for president again. And even though the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, has not, as of this show, declared that he's running for president, he is assumed to be Trump's biggest rival, right? So Trump, as he normally does, is kind of like going after him. You know how politicians do. They go after him. So he said of DeSantis that DeSantis begged for his endorsement back when he was running for governor of Florida. And Trump says if he hadn't given DeSantis his endorsement, that DeSantis would be working at a pizza parlor or working in a cigar shop right now. Now, I find this remark, usually I just ignore what Trump says.
I like both pizza and cigars.
I find this disparaging on two levels. I like both pizza and cigars, and some of my favorite people in the world work in cigar shops. You know what I'm saying? I mean, is that supposed to be clearly he's trying to knock him down a notch. So that's a pejorative, right? He's trying to say you must be a dummy if you work in a cigar shop.
I don't understand the whole anti-smoking lobby.
Yeah,
is such a powerful thing. Like it gets so much voice, and I don't think it's a huge part of the populace. I think it's a smaller part of the populace that has a lot of energy.
I think they found certain things that did resonate with a lot of people. Like, if you're not a smoker, for example, secondhand smoke is not something you're going to enjoy.
Agreed.
So I understand that they found something that resonated with people. But by and large, most people are fine with other people smoking as long as they're not doing it like blowing the smoke in their
Directly
face.
by them, those kind of
exactly,
things.
you know.
Yeah.
And in terms of cigars, how many people do you know that don't smoke cigars or cigarettes, but they'll tell you, "Oh, I love the smell of a cigar." Now, not everybody, sure,
Not everybody.
yeah, but there are plenty of people I know who
And
don't smoke.
when I go out
but
to
they love smelling a cigar. that I'm
brewery or
smoking.
somewhere that has a patio, I go find the farthest corner. If there's anyone even remotely close, I will literally walk up and ask them, "Hey, do you mind?"
Absolutely do that.
And if
as
they
well.
say, "Yeah, it's not my favorite thing," I go, "You know what? That's fine.
Yeah.
I'll put it in my pocket."
But I will tell you this: if I'm there smoking first, and you come up and sit in the vicinity of it, I will not take your complaint seriously.
Yeah, if I'm standing
was
there
there first,
if I'm over there smoking, you come sit down, then you complain about smoke. I've got no love for you.
Yeah, exactly.
No love
yeah,
for you
yeah.
at all.
You could have sat anywhere. You sat here.
Yes,
Don't
that's-
bother
no.
me. Yeah.
Ha.
Don't.
Ha.
So was in New Orleans this last weekend, as I may have mentioned, and certainly enjoyed
love New
doing some smoking, and went to the Crescent City Cigar Shop there, which
Nice.
is good. And picked up a few things that I'll be smoking and talking about in upcoming episodes of the show because I hadn't seen them before. So excited about that. So all right, we are going to take a break. When we return, we are going to wrap up the show, and we do have I think one more beer to taste. So I'm pretty psyched about
this
that.
whiskey is so good.
I know. It'll be interesting to see how this goes with the milk stout.
Oh, I bet it's gonna
that
be
we're going. Actually, it's not a milk stout. It's just an Imperial stout called Wake Up Dead, and we'll try it next.
I know who I am. Come on, let me love you a little.
Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting, show number 322. All about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. And by the way, this is only our second show that we've been on the Audio One radio network. And we still have no idea what radio stations are airing the show.
Email us. If you hear us, email us. Let me know where you're at.
If you hear us on the radio, please do us a favor. Email us and let us know.
rfcmedia.com.
Please do that because we have no idea. We'll get a list from them at some point, and then we'll be able to do that Casey Kasem thing like Smoking and Toasting. It's heard on great radio stations like WXYZ, Altoona, Pennsylvania.
Oh, yeah.
Or whatever. Yeah, WXYZ isn't in Altoona. But anyway, we definitely want to be able to, to communicate with and talk to our listeners around the country. So if you're joining us for the first time, thank you. We appreciate it, and we hope you'll come back. And if your favorite cigar shop is a TAA member, that's the Tobacconist Association of America, be on the lookout for a brand new addition to the Casa Magna line from Quesada that debuted at that TAA trade show this week and will be available only at TAA retailers.
And Quesada makes great cigars.
The Casa Magna Liga F Toro Box Press TAA 2023. It's a box press Toro measuring 6 inches long by a 54 ring gauge. It's the first Dominican-made Casa Magna, and now they're adding a very new size and shape. That's what Manuel Quesada said. He added that blending a press cigar gives different notes and intensities using the same tobaccos as the original. So that's an interesting thing. A box press cigar is going to have a different flavor than a round cigar.
This is not unheard of.
Using the exact same tobacco.
Not unheard. Are you a tea drinker at all?
Yeah.
I'm not totally a tea. I like iced tea and stuff like that, but I do know this. If you steep tea with a tea bag and you pull it out and you get rid of the tea bag, you get one flavor. But if you squeeze that tea bag, sometimes
if you mash it,
if you mash
the leaves,
it, you can get some bitter flavors or some off flavors that you don't want, or just different flavors depending on the tea bag. So the difference is sometimes when you press something, when you kind of extract some oils or intensify those things. So that's not totally unheard of.
That makes sense. And also the shape affects the burn of a cigar. And so that's going to affect the way the flavors work as well. So speaking of flavors, at 10.2% alcohol by volume, we are tasting the flavors in Woke Up Dead Imperial Stout from the very awesome Left Hand Brewing Company. I don't know where they came up with the idea from Left Hand, but I love the whole talk to the hand
Left
thing.
Hand Brewing. Yes, absolutely. Not a lot of information on here other than that. Bold yet smooth with notes of dark chocolate, dried fruit, and coffee. All those things are absolutely true, and holy crap, this is delicious.
So, Ian, the first thought I had was, I can't believe this came out of a 12-ounce bottle. It's the kind of flavor I would have expected from a Big Bomber or one of the huge cans or something. The fact that you could buy a 4-pack or a 6-pack of this is kind of crazy.
It's delicious. So it does a few things. First off, Left Hand has this beautifully creamy, delicious kind of mouthfeel to it.
Right. It's got a darker
It's
sort of
odd because the bubbles are a little bit big. If you're watching this on video, you'll see the bubbles are a little bit big, but they don't come across the palate that way. They come across much smaller. The second thing is that dried fruit note there. There's a bitterness, like a dark cherry bitter.
It's right before you get the coffee finish.
Right, and it's delicious. And then the coffee finish comes up with its own coffee bitter, but it's a different bitter.
Different than the dried fruit, agreed.
And if you're turned off by bitter, please don't be turned off by this, because the truth is, this is really, really a nice finish with a little bit of sweetness that just lingers, and it's a little bit of a woodiness to it.
It's a better bitter.
It's a better bitter.
Yeah.
So it's a slightly astringent bitter too, but it's really, really gentle and friendly. So Left Hand, good job, guys.
Yeah. And by the way, I don't remember if I told you this on the program or not, but went out with my wife and I went out with a friend of ours and found ourselves at Platypus Brewing here in the greater Houston area.
You found yourself there. That place is great.
Yeah, I didn't direct myself there at all. No, that didn't happen. I found myself at Platypus Brewing. But they had, and it was something served only at the brewery, they had an Imperial Stout that blew my flipping
You told me
mind.
about that. As a matter of
It
fact,
was
you were so
good.
excited about it. You texted me. You were like, "Man,
From
you
there.
gotta try
Yeah,
this."
you got to try this. So,
So
yeah.
I need to make it by
So
there.
I double checked. It's not available in any stores or retail. It's only at the brewery.
Yeah.
But I asked them to pass along a message to our buddy there
Oh,
and see if
man.
he would
So
see if he would
fun.
release it because that was
So
good.
on here, by the way, they do have a list of ingredients on this beer. Remember when Budweiser was supposed to have their list of ingredients? I think it was Bud Light
Yeah, that lasted about 5 days.
that they didn't do.
Yeah, exactly.
This has the list of ingredients. Ingredients: Rocky Mountain water, malted barley, rolled oats, hops, yeast. Good job, fellas.
Yeah, that's good. I think
Delicious.
I think maybe we'll start a new tradition here on the show. Is that over the rolling of the music for our closing credits? Instead of credits, you can read the list of ingredients of the last beer that we sampled, assuming that they're available on the
In
bottle.
general, that won't take long because beer only has so many ingredients.
Speaking of sampling, I noticed that you're availing yourself of a little more of that oak and Eden.
This is before I have to arm wrestle you for it after the show.
Have a great week, my friends. Our guest is Chris Morris next week. We are so psyched about next week's show. Cocktail time on Smoking and Toasting. Have a great week, and cheers, y'all.
Cheers, y'all.
When it's okay. Yeah, you never listen to what anybody else says. Such a stuff.